Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Quantum Healthy Podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Oksana Hansen. Thank you for joining us in our little corner of the internet here. I want to just start out by introducing her. So, she is a quantum and circadian educator and clinician. She helps people with autoimmune issues heal really through quantum biology, like we talk about on this podcast, circadian alignment, cellular optimization. And she is the founder and CEO of Quantum Lens Wellness. And she has a profound mission to revolutionize the concept of health and wellness by embracing the power of natural healing through applied quantum biology. And she is also a graduate from the Institute of Applied Quantum Biology, where Laura and I came across Oksana. Hence, we invited her on this podcast today because we know she has an amazing story to share. And she also hosts quantum health retreats. We're going to be talking about that today as well. So you can start wherever you want your story to start, really. But yeah, how did you transition from a corporate executive to the health coaching space? And then how did you find quantum?
Thank you guys, first of all, for having me. Feel so honored to be here, and I'm really excited for our chat today. And thank you for inviting me. I'm so excited to share my story because I think that it hits home for a lot of people. And I'm going to do something unusual. I'm going to start at the very beginning of my story, and that was from my childhood, if that's okay with you guys. When we lived in Russia, we lived through Chernobyl. And so, because of that, my mom ended up developing a pretty rare cancer, osteosarcoma, in her jaw, and it went up to her brain. And in 1990, when my family moved from Russia to the United States, there was a caseload of doctors at a teaching hospital at UC Davis that wanted to operate on this cancer. They ended up, I don't remember how long the surgery was, but it was one of a kind at that point in time where they ended up removing the entire right side of her face. And the crazy thing is, she survived. And because of this, I think I kind of internalized. My mom was 30 years old when she developed this cancer. I kind of internalized that I was going to die young or I was going to develop cancer. And in my mind, like, I didn't need to take care of my body because what happened to her was going to happen to me because of what everybody says, like your genetics, and it's just going to happen to you. And I really grew up in and out of the hospital because I was around medical professionals all the time, then the nurses and the aftercare when she finally came home after a year. So I was in the hospitals and in and out of doctors my entire life. And we were never taught to question anything. Anything that the doctor said, that was kind of what how it goes. And so I was kind of like groomed very, very young in our medical system to just trust what other people were telling you. Now, looking back on the experience of my mom's story, who ended up having, I believe, a total of 36 surgeries so far,
Wow.
and doing what I do now and being a health advocate for the people that I work with, some of those surgeries were completely experimental. They were unnecessary. They put her through so much pain and my family through so much grief. And I think that really sets the stage of the background of how I got into my own cancer journey. And so at the age of 35, I was diagnosed with melanoma and really wasn't a shocker to me. I think the biggest thing that was a shock to me was I said, don't like older people get this? Like I was 35 years old. I didn't understand why I had melanoma. But the bigger picture is something changed inside of me when the diagnosis was now on me and not somebody close to me. I had two young children at the time, and I was like, I'm going to survive this no matter what. And I wanted to make sure that everything that I had learned from my mother's experience, that I actually advocated for myself. And the way that I did that was I started reading research papers for the first time in my life. And I found a study that talked about the parameter that you cut around the melanoma. Because I had known several people who had died from melanoma when they cut out the melanoma and they didn't get it all and it had spread. And so I went to my surgeon and I said to her, how much around the cancer are you going to cut? And she said 5 millimeters. And I said, I found this study. Would you please read it? It says that you should cut at least 10. I convinced her that I didn't care what it looked like, that I need to be around for my babies. And that was the first time in my life that I had a conversation with a medical professional, and it felt like a team that we were working together for an end goal. And aftercare, we still didn't agree on because after my surgery and healing from that, I was told to stay out of the sun, to wear sunblock, to never be in my bathing suit in a pool until after the sun goes down. And what was interesting was I didn't get it. I was like, I don't think the sun causes cancer. And there was something innately in me, my intuition, that was telling me that the sun gives life to everything on earth. How could it be that the one thing that gives life takes life? And it just didn't make any sense to me. And that's when I came across the Institute of Quantum Biology. And I remember I literally cried taking that program. And Carrie Bennett taught a class on skin cancer. And I've never felt so heard and seen in my whole life in that class because finally it made sense that really skin cancer is the sun, like your body begging for it to be in sunlight, not the opposite way around. And so that's kind of a short version of my story, but is really kind of being in the healthcare industry as a bystander and then really taking the ownership of my own health and now being able to take all that knowledge and share it with other people. It was just, I felt this mission bestowed upon me. Like you said, I was a corporate executive in Silicon Valley, San Francisco area, and this really made me slow down. So much so that we moved all the way across country to Nashville, Tennessee, and yeah, I had a different mission on my heart. And I had to just share this knowledge with other people. And so now I get to talk to people like you guys all day long who like are like, we get to share this with other people. This is so great.
Oh, this is so
Wow.
awesome. I have two people in mind when you're sharing your story that have to hear this episode. I am very excited to share this with them because I think it's gonna hit them way more differently when I share things because of it's coming from you, a melanoma survivor. And I'm just curious if you could, I don't know, just what would you say to someone with melanoma or someone who is really fearing that like sun causes skin cancer? Like what would you tell these people?
Yeah, I think the first thing that I say when it comes to cancer is your body is very smart and God doesn't make mistakes, right? So when cancer, those cells clump together for a tumor, it's actually very protective. It's helping it to not spread throughout your body. And so if we just kind of reframe when we look at cancer is it's not trying to kill you. Like, in fact, if you look at the studies, and I probably shouldn't be saying this, but there's life insurance companies and studies that they show that not one person ever died from cancer. They actually died from the radiation and the chemo. So when they put like cause of death, it's those things that killed them. So it's just knowing the power of your mind. The mindset is a huge thing. It's the first thing that I talk to people about, is because our mind is so extremely powerful. When we talk about life, we instantly look at this physical being because it's something that you could feel, you could touch. I could touch this desk right now, right? And a lot of times we think that that's who we are, but we're not. We're actually consciousness. And that consciousness is working and creating our reality in this physical life. And so when you work on your consciousness and your spirituality, like I feel like anything could happen. And in the medical terms, they would call it what spontaneous remission. And in the biblical sense, you would call it a miracle. But those things happen all the time. And what is the difference between a person where they have a spontaneous, event or a miracle, or a person who doesn't make it out of that situation? So just knowing and trusting that the body and everything that it does is so intelligent, and knowing that you can reverse anything.
That is a beautiful answer. I 100% agree with all of that. All right. So,
I'll go for it.
go ahead, Laura. You're
I
good.
was just saying, yeah, I have a couple people close to me that have been through a melanoma journey, a brief journey, and are doing well. Or one was a scare actually, but the other one, yeah, but they're both very fearful of the sun. And then I also my my military college boyfriend, he died of melanoma at I don't know in his
Mm.
40s, and so I was you know, brokenhearted with that. I don't know his whole story. We were completely out of contact. The only thing I had heard was that he had a lot of surgeries, and he made a comment saying, you know, he didn't know how many more, surgeries he could undergo to remove, the cancers. And I do you go into blue light at all as potentially the cause? Was one of my questions. We've looked at the lack of sun as potential cause. And I'm talking more melanoma than some like the basal cell and squamous cell cancers, because there's other theories on those. But with your clients, do you talk about blue light as a potential? And I guess I would ask, like, would you mind telling us where the melanoma was that they discovered? Was it a place that sees the sun?
Yes. So ask me again if I miss one part of your question.
Okay,
But
yes. No problem.
but so my particular cancer was on the lower leg. And
Okay.
interestingly enough, I had just gotten on this health kick. And it was about a year prior to my diagnosis, I decided I was going to walk 3 miles a day. So every morning I would put on my tennis shoes. And it was probably, I would say now, knowing now what I know, which I didn't know at this time, it was probably around UVA time, right? Maybe half UVA, half UVB time. I would do these 3 mile walks in shorts. I love the way my skin looks tan. Like it's weird, right? Like we're teenagers, we would go into those tanning booths because we like it was sexy to be tan, right? Now everybody's like pale and white. But I was lathering on this sunblock every day. Like I had this, okay, I got my skin checked twice a year. And like I was putting on my sunblock, I was doing everything the dermatologist told me to do. So how come I got diagnosed with melanoma? If I saw a dermatologist twice a year, every single year since I was 12. Why did I get diagnosed with melanoma when I did everything that they told me to do? And that's what made me question, like, what is going on here? Well, about a year and a half after the diagnosis and my surgery, that's when they came out and did that huge recall. You guys might remember, it was just, 5 years
Mhm.
back, of oxybenzone
Yes,
causing cancer.
right.
And I went under my cabinet, under the sink, and I pulled out this Australian sunblock, which I thought was healthy because it wasn't from the United States. It was Australian. And the main ingredient was oxybenzone. And I just couldn't believe it.
Ah, okay. So that's sort of your theory. Yeah, potential.
Well, I think I don't you can't ever say one thing, right? Like
No,
all of
no.
my life choices are different than other people's choices. So, do I think it was a toxin exposure? Yes. Do I think that blue light exposure? Absolutely. And I think that was the other part of your question.
Yeah, what
I
was your
mean, we are
job?
so yeah, so I was under fluorescent lights all day long. So I was in a building. The interesting thing is I think intuitively I always knew, like, and I need to be better. I am a lot better than I was in my 20s and 30s of following my intuition, but like I had a convertible. I loved the sun. I would put the roof down, blast my music, right? Like there are these things that I look back and I was like, my body always knew, and I intuitively knew that my body needed sun, but yet I was lathering all this sunblock or covering my arms or, had these false narratives in my head about that my elders in my life were telling me about sunspots and wrinkles and all these things. And now I look back on it and I was like, man, no, like my body needed the sun. It was, looking for the sun any occasion that I could get it.
Do you attract clients with skin cancer because of this? Have you noticed that in your business?
Only recently, but I think it's because I started coming on podcasts sharing my story.
Hmm.
When when I went out there, I wasn't really trying to niche down because I really felt like the quantum approach in itself was a niche. And so I started attracting people with autoimmune conditions, and that for me just felt like, even though the approach to most cases is always going to be, blocking blue light and getting sunlight and grounding and water and expanding our easy water in our bodies, I just felt like those clients that I was working with autoimmune issues were getting such quick results. Like people going from like 6 autoimmune issues to like zero and off all their meds within a month or two, or trying to get pregnant for 2.5 years, within 6 weeks finally got pregnant. Like I was just having such amazing results that just happens to be where my clients were coming from. But recently, since I started sharing my own personal journey, I have a lot of skin cancer interest.
I bet.
Yeah.
I quickly went to a Jack Cruz, Dr. Jack Cruz blog from a while ago, and just pulled this out. This is just seconds before the podcast started. He had a picture of this melanoma increase versus the sunlight, and it's like this X from 1935 and the years that they assessed it versus the increase or decrease. And it was interesting. The melanoma goes up on the one side of the X, and sunlight goes down. And
Hmm.
yeah, it is interesting with your theory. But he wrote here, I just wanted to add this. Sunscreen causes more skin cancers of all types. Higher melanoma risk equals low melatonin, low dopamine, lower vitamin D levels equals no sun equals lowered mitochondrial redox. And then he kind of summarizes it. He gets into OPN3, that's a little beyond with melanocytes, talking about how it lowers the action of alpha MSH and this lowers melanin production. And then he says, this means another form of light is the real problem. Blue light slash non-native electromagnetic frequencies is that answer. So, we don't, like you say, I liked how you said, we don't always know the cause, and there might be more than one cause. Like, is it the sunscreen? Is it the lack of sunlight? Is it blocking the sun? Is it the toxins in the sun, sunscreen? Or is it the toxin of blue light that you lived, maybe you had more in your job, and then you start to go further with the consciousness. What was your headspace at that time? What were you dealing with? It sounds like you were dealing with your mother's health, and, you know, then you go further back and look at mitochondrial heteroplasmy, and you inherited your mitochondria from your mother, and if she had this early cancer at a young age, you might be more predisposed. And what a beautiful thing for you to find quantum biology, because now you're doing all these quantum health practices to increase your no, so lower your mitochondrial heteroplasmy, so basically meaning you're making your mitochondria healthy so that you should never have to go through what you went through. So I really salute you for all of that.
Thank you, Laura. And I think if we look back on the history of like it was either in the early 1900s or late 1800s. So I might get this specifically wrong, but the right
Mhm.
time frame. I mean, something like 80% of Americans were farmers. So think about
Mhm.
that. They're
Mhm.
up in the early hours feeding the chickens, right? Then they're, doing whatever they do out in the fields, whether it's seeding or harvesting or whatnot, right? And and then all of a sudden, like we moved our jobs steadily. I mean, if you were to probably look this up, all of a sudden, like you would see that the jobs went from mostly outdoors to mostly indoors. And so in my statistical mind, I'm like, there is a direct correlation with when skin cancer appeared,
Mhm.
right? The late 1800s. And you can say, yes, there was medical developments. We were testing for it. There was better ways to test for it, whereas before that, maybe there wasn't. Absolutely, that could be true. But I mean, you just never even heard of skin cancer before, sunblock appeared on the market. And why did sunblock appear on the market, right? So there was army guys who were going blind because they were walking over snow. And so they said, oh, well, it must be the sun that is causing them to go blind. Well, it was the reflection of the snow that was causing these injuries. And so actually the military developed the very first sunblock. I don't know if you guys have seen those like old like Rambo movies where they have like the black smeared over their face and their,
The cam,
um so
we call it.
so the so that was the first sunblock that was ever developed.
I remember wearing cam in basic training.
Yeah.
And, yeah, in survival training, and oh, it was heck to get it off. It's very thick and
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, interesting.
Yes. So yeah, so think about that. Like that's what we're using. Like we're using something super toxic to like block the sun and then we're like blaming the sun for it.
I feel bad that we didn't
I,
discover zinc oxide and things that are a little gentler, to
I mean,
reflect it instead of
yeah.
block.
Well, and sunblock is a $16 billion industry. Like, so, right? You follow the money when you have all these concerns, and you can easily see, wow, okay, they're going to start marketing that this is going to cause skin damage, that you're going to get sunspots, you're going to get wrinkles, right? Like, here's what I say to people when they talk about wrinkles. I'm like, I am alive. I am almost 41 years old and I am going to welcome every gray hair and every wrinkle because I am here. Like, let's change the standard of beauty, right? Like, we're here. This skin is beautiful. Like, I'm going to embrace the changes because that just means that I'm maturing and I'm just so blessed to have the opportunity to continue to be here and be on this life journey.
That's
Hallelujah.
you say that. I this makes me think of when I was in so I was a makeup artist years ago. And like I'm thinking about this just right now as you guys are talking about sunscreen. So we would have products come out, right? Like a foundation. Always the new foundations had sunscreen. And we always pushed like, oh, you got to have your sunscreen in your foundation. And if you sold someone the older foundation that didn't have a sunscreen in it, you were trained to make sure that they have the sunscreen in their moisturizer or in some other product. Like always make sure like that was an extra sell, like not the at like because I'm thinking of a certain brand I worked for and I'm not going to say the brand, but so, that brand had sunscreens like just regular sunscreens, but there were like ones that were just in the sunscreen section that were tinted so you could use them as a foundation, but then there were also separate foundations and things with added sunscreen. And always it was the really old products, like the older products that didn't have the sunscreen, and they would eventually get discontinued and phased out. And I don't know if you know how
Hmm.
people are when something gets discontinued, but they're not happy. And so, but you'd have to push that new thing. And all the new things, they all had sunscreen, every single one of them.
Wow.
Mm.
And
Wow.
I just made that connect. I mean, I knew that, but I just was thinking about the history piece and it's just, yeah, I just made that connection. So I thought I would share it.
Well, how do you get something ingrained into society to make it normal, right? You phased it in, you then discontinue, make it completely impossible to get the old product, and now it's the new norm. And now the next generation, they don't even question it. They don't even know.
Yeah, exactly. They don't even know and they don't question. But
There's some. I was gonna say there's been studies. I think we talked a little bit with Heather Shepard. So, if people haven't heard that episode, it might be good to go back because we talked a lot about the sunlight protocol or sunlight RX, which of course all three of us got taught, in school. And just to bring out here for anybody that's just listening to this for the first time, but the studies that were done with UV radiation were kind of looking at UV in isolation and done more in a lab without the full spectrum sun. So that it was unpaired, you know, we didn't have infrared or red, and it's kind of like the same thing as blue light, where, blue light, unfortunately, we have isolated blue light in our homes now is unpaired with red and infrared, unless you're, biohacking this with different lighting. And so red and infrared it's present outdoors for 12 hours a day. And just, again, going back to this question of what causes melanoma. I mean, it is probably is multifactorial, but maybe one of them is a deficiency in red and infrared light and UV, who knows? But, and then we've add this isolated blue indoors. So I just wanted to follow that. And also just the Swedish study, I grabbed it here just before. I'm sure you know all about it. But the mortality with respect to the sun exposure, it was in Sweden in 2016, and they studied so many people, and at the end of the day, they interpreted this as suggesting that sun exposure avoidance is a risk factor for all-cause death of the same magnitude as smoking. So just, I guess I would ask people listening that if they know someone with melanoma or have experienced it, to go deeper with the research and make sure you're getting the full picture. And because I don't know, how do you feel, Oksana, about people that just then avoid the sun completely?
Laura, so I would challenge anybody listening to this to send me a study that was ever done with the full spectrum light. And we tried, like, we looked really, really
Wow.
hard. And what you will find, and what the studies for the case of sunblock were built on, was this study where they took albino mice and they put an arc lamp on it, right? So an arc lamp was way before LEDs and all this other stuff, but it looks nothing like the natural sunlight or the full spectrum light that you would expect to see outside. And when I read that, I was like, albino mice? Okay, well, they have no melanin. Like, huh, what does that mean when something has no melanin? Does that mean they're nocturnal? Huh. Okay. So let me, like, in my analytical brain, let's interpret this study. We're going to take a nocturnal creature, right? A creature that comes out and is active during the night. That's albino, that has no
Mhm.
melanin in their skin. We're going to expose them with an arc lamp, so an artificial light that looks nothing like the sunlight, and we're going to prove that it causes skin cancer. But guess
Bingo.
what? If you publish a study showing that this caused skin cancer, unfortunately, most people are just going to believe it, and companies are going to get on the bandwagon. Okay, skincare industry is now transforming. We are going to be the first company to put sunblock in all of our foundation, and we're going to market that. And then the next company will follow. And before you know it, you can't even find foundation without sunblock in it. And that's just how and it's surprising, like, to look at the skin cancer articles, because you will not find one that was ever done with the actual light. And especially using safe sun practices like we preach,
Yes.
where you're building on sunrise, then UVA, then UVB, right? Like, you're prepping your skin. Your body has this internal sunblock. It
Mhm.
happens during UVA, right? So a lot of times, like, we forget our body is so intelligent. God doesn't make mistakes. Like, we have a mechanism to protect ourselves. Also, the browning of our skin when we get tan, that's another beautiful mechanism that protects us from, it being harmful. And the erythema effect, where you get red if you're getting too much light, right? You're
Right.
blocking that erythema effect if you're putting sunblock on your skin. Your body is intelligent. Just look at it, just listen to it. Like, you're getting a little pink, go in the shade. Like, don't go inside,
Your
go in the
sunscreen,
shade. Just get
right?
Yeah,
yeah,
Keep your
exactly.
sunscreen a shade, everybody.
Or if you're,
exactly.
if you are trying to surf, or, it's not smart to do that in, the hot UVB time of the day. But let's say there are times where you're kind of stuck, then it's clothing or hats, right? Like you can cover up. A
Or
Let me
those
question,
tell you a
wigs
story.
with zinc
So,
in it, if you really have to put on something. Yeah, there are a lot
right?
of healthy alternatives.
well, let's talk about that. So, my husband, he's got a red beard, very blonde hair, and my kids are probably like skin type 1, right? Like very clear, like you could see all the blue veins, like, right? Like very blonde hair. And when we started doing sunrise, my kids were like, I want to be outside with you. That I don't want to be on the couch, right? Like, so they started to come out with me. We started to build, creating a habit of doing a UVA walk as a family every morning. I homeschool my
Oh,
kids, so we have a lot of
I
flexibility.
love
Um,
that. I hope all the parents are listening to this.
That's awesome.
Yes. And we went to, I think it was like Santa Claus Town or something in Illinois. It was this water park. It was this huge water park. And they had black asphalt. So you were walking, like on black asphalt. It was very hot that day. It was over 100 degrees. And my husband goes, There's no way you're not putting sunblock on them. And I go, I'm not putting sunblock on them. Like, we're going to be just fine. I go, Hey, if we get a little pink, we're going to like step inside and cool off and, take a little break or whatnot. We were there all day. So, like, we were there when the park opened, we were there when the park closed. We were never pink. We were never red. Nobody was sunburnt. My husband could not believe it.
Wow.
And like I said, it was because we had been using these safe sun practices. And like what I will say is we do have a lake house, so we spend time on the water. And so, for those occasions, if we're going to be out all day, I'll use a little bit of coconut oil. Okay, it's super natural, it's hydrating. It, helps a little bit. You do have to reapply. It's not going to last all day like those chemical sunblocks that you get. But like if you absolutely have to be out there, like you said, cover up, put a long sleeve on, put a hat on, put a little coconut oil on your face, right? Like, so there are little hacks that you could do.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
fabulous. A question I do have before, I guess before we leave the sun safety, do you ever get into seed oils at all? There's a lot of people talking about it now, saying that if you quit all the seed oils, you're less likely to burn. I still have burned a little bit, like going down south, like to the Caribbean. I have I've been off of seed oils completely. So, have you had any experience with that?
Yeah. Did you say that you were ex-military?
Yes, ex-Air Force.
Okay. Okay. So, in the military, like they teach you that it takes you about 17 days to acclimate to an environment. So, a lot of people go down on vacation for a week and then they get really burnt and they're also eating seed oils, right? So, they're
True,
drinking,
true.
they're eating all seed oils, and they're going to, like, say, if you're going from New York down to Mexico, like, you're not giving your body that time to like acclimate, right? So,
Right.
I think it's a combination of all those things. There is studies that show the correlation of the introduction of seed oils and skin cancer and how they both go up
Okay.
exponentially since the introduction of seed oils.
It's a correlation. Yeah. Okay.
There's a correlation. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I know I guess can't remember off the top of my head. Is it something to do with it affects the cardiolipin inside the, inner mitochondrial membrane? Does it? I can't remember the science on why. I don't unless either of you could share that. But otherwise, we can just challenge listeners to look into that a little bit more. And if you are someone who does burn and you don't have the opportunity to, with your job, to get out at sunrise, UVA, like Oksana does with her kids and build their solar calluses, then maybe one thing you could do is quit the seed oils, which for people listening, we haven't really had to talk about seed oils, but seed oils are the canola, the corn, soy, safflower, sunflower, these oxidized, basically these oxidized oils, because when they press them, there's just enough oxygen involved in that process that it causes them to oxidize and go. They're basically rancid by the time you use them. But then we, fry them in French fries, and that if you go to McDonald's, or I don't want to isolate McDonald's. It could be any of the fast food restaurants, but they tend to reuse that oil. So it's just horrific oils. And yeah, so not really in your health's best interest. So anyway, I just was curious to see if do you share that when you coach? Do you share that as part of your, sun safety practices?
I do. And it's mostly, I like to educate. So I show people the studies. So I am by no means an expert in seed oils, but I have the studies in my program where I share when we talk about sun safety that seed oils is a contributor.
Well, let's talk about your program then. First, I guess, just going onto your website, I read that you've actually trademarked it and call it the quantum lens method. And you've got these 5 pillars. Could you tell us a little bit about the method and these 5 pillars?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. So I've taken about 25 women through my program as I was kind of fine tuning it. And what I found was the same exact things kept coming up. And I was like, okay, we have got to create a little method to organize how we go about prioritizing our health. And so the first thing that I found, and I think I've already mentioned, is our mindset and our beliefs. And I do a lot of work with patients who have trauma backgrounds. And so we try to work through our thoughts, creating a mindfulness practice. And that looks different for everyone, whether you say a prayer, whether you're inviting all the beings of 100% white light that are here working with you in for the day, whether it's if you're a man, like my husband has these mantras that he repeats every morning. And so, whatever it is that that looks like for people, and it's very different from one person to the next, but creating some kind of, I would say, I guess, intention around how you're living. And so, what I find is a lot of people they're just going through the motions. And it's very much how I was when I was living in my executive career too. It was like, wake up, send the kids to daycare, go to my job, come home, eat dinner, do it all over again. And so it's just flipping the script of how you're living to absolutely living with intention. And then the second pillar is align, and that is really that circadian rhythm stuff, right? So if we're not in alignment with the earth's energy and with nature, our body's not going to function correctly because for millions and millions of years, we would wake up with the sun and we would go to bed with the fire on every night with no lights, with just the sky and the stars and the moon and maybe a fire, right? So how do we align to best live with how nature intended, right? So our technology is becoming more and more advanced. Well, our body can't function, it can't change as quickly as technology changes. And so we still have to make time and create effort to get outside and be in nature. Talk about hydration, and really the hydration is twofold. It is hydrating your body. So a lot of people ask, is that just the water I drink? Well, yes, the water you drink is really important, but also the exclusions of water, the easy water, the fourth phase of water, the space, the interspatial water that is in between your cells is even more important than the water that you drink. And then grounding with the earth. And that is because, like, our body, our consciousness, it just needs a couple pieces of information. Where
Mm.
are you in space and time? What season is it? And, what's the energy field of where you're located? And if you give your body all those things, your body can adapt. Like we were talking about, like they teach you that it takes about 17 days to adjust to a climate when you go to a new location. So your body will sense that magnetic energy field and it will adapt slowly to the information that you're giving it. So very important with people who like travel, right, for work, especially they go to other countries, different time zones. So very important to get grounded and aligned. And then energize. And that is really just getting to the core on a cellular level, is working with your mitochondria and giving it all the things and tools that it needs in order to give you that energy production. So that way we could stop relying on things like coffee and alcohol and all these kind of external stimulants that we think gives us coffee, but actually, or gives us energy, but actually just drains us of it.
And we're 100% behind that, aren't we, Andia?
Yes, we are.
We both quit coffee. And for me, it wasn't coffee, it was dark chocolate. So we're on a caffeine-free journey and working on a sugar-free journey. That's the next one. I would just, I love these pillars. I really want to celebrate you for figuring out, working with these 25 women, how to build those. And there was a quote that I wrote down. I was looking in my journal just quickly here. So similar to what you said on, I think it was in the line, was a guy named Chase Hughes. He's on the Danny Jones podcast recently, and he said technology is outpacing our ability to adapt to it. I thought that was
Yes.
very, very clever. And you really just said that. So I just wanted to single that out. Now, we have heard that you are hosting retreats. And you've got one coming up with Carrie Bennett. We both love to go to that. I think it's in Franklin, Tennessee. Can you tell
It
us
is.
how did this come? Have you done them before? And how did this come about? And tell us about the one coming up.
Yeah. So for the past 3 years, I've been hosting retreats. And what I find is it's really easy to teach someone something and have them walk away and not put it into practice. And so I knew that in order to help people implement this stuff, you really have to get them outside with no cell phone coverage in nature, right? We know just a 3-day camping trip can reset your circadian rhythm, right? So the idea was to host retreats so you can really show people how to build a practice, and that way when they go home they know exactly what to do. It's one thing to learn something, it's another. So I met with Carrie beginning of last year and I said to her, I think we need to host a retreat together and kind of do it on a bigger scale. And even though I was hosting retreats, I wasn't necessarily, I was introducing some quantum tools and circadian rhythm at my last few retreats, but it wasn't the entire bulk of it. So this is really going to be all quantum health, quantum biology. And we have some really amazing speakers coming. Rudy from Viva Rays
Oh,
is going to be a speaker. Sarah
wonderful.
Kleiner, Sarah Pugh, Stephen Hussey is coming. I'm sure I'm forgetting lots of other people. Carrie and I are speaking, and really the focus is going to be ether, spirituality, water. Like we're going to come at it from a lot of different angles. And so really, we have people flying in from all over the world to be speakers at this event. We have a ton of vendors that are coming. There's going to be experiential things that you can do. So things to help your lymph flow, PMF. We're going to do ice baths. We're going to do sound baths. We're going to do some emotional work. Like one of the talks that I'm giving is going to be about letting go. We're going to do a little bit of trauma work. So we're just so excited. It's right outside of Nashville, Tennessee, in Franklin, Tennessee. It's on 160 acres. It's a beautiful piece of land. It's an old rock quarry, and it's going to be kind of 2 full days. We have a VIP package, which one night we're going to hang out at our Airbnb and do a little bonfire and hang out. And then the next night, there's a very special treat where it's going to be a very cool curated dinner for the VIPs, which we only have 16 spots available. And that's going to be just a private, very unique experience, is what I will say, with all the speakers involved. So, and the VIPs. So it's going to be a great event. We're really looking forward to it. We've put a lot of heart. We've worked for over a year on this event so far. So it's going to
It
be amazing.
sounds really special, that's for sure. That's so
Yeah.
awesome.
And we can't wait to like meet everyone and hug everybody. Like that was my biggest thing, is I was like, we've known these people for
Mhm.
like 5+ years and you've never met them in person. Like I just can't wait. It's gonna be so exciting.
What's the name of it and what's the date of it?
It's Return to Nature, and the dates are June 26th and 27th. And it's a Thursday, Friday. And we kind of did that so people could stay. There's so many awesome historical places to see, beautiful nature, things to do here. So we just figured people could come for a long weekend and enjoy the area.
Is it a long weekend in the States that weekend or
No, just
no?
meaning that like we did it on Thursday and
And yeah,
Friday, so
okay.
people could stay for the weekend and enjoy. Yeah.
Okay. And have you done them before? I want to say on your Instagram, it looked like I
Mhm.
saw something called Empower. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So the Empower retreats are ones that I run by myself, and then the
Okay.
one Carrie and I are putting on together is the Return to Nature one. Yeah,
And the Empower ones, is that something you do every year at a certain
it
time?
is. Yeah,
Okay.
it just varies every year, but it's a much smaller group. It's about 10 to 12 people.
Okay. I actually recognize somebody that attended yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Who's that?
Natasha? Natasha
Oh yeah.
Ormsby?
Yes.
Yeah. We
Yep. She
studied
was in the our program. Yeah.
yeah, okay. Small world. We studied homeopathy together.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. So she actually introduced me to the Institute of Quantum Biology. What a small
Oh,
world is that?
I love it. 6 degrees of separation.
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. Now, okay, mentioned on Instagram. Why don't we go there? Andy and I have this, I guess it's a term we like to use, Instagram goddess. So I would put you in our Instagram goddess category. Yeah, you've got had some great posts. Oh my goodness. Keep going. Don't, sometimes I know when I post on Instagram, I think, does anybody really look? And you put so much heart, a lot of times it's just a download that you get and you're like, I gotta share this. And but a few that I liked was Find Peace in the Pause. That was one of my favorite ones. You're gonna see a whole bunch of likes because I just went in and sent you a whole bunch of love last night with going through and commented on a few, but that one I really liked. And I love this one, The Body Cures Itself. You must provide the right environment for it to heal.
So you can't, what do they say? You can't heal in the environment that made you sick.
Exactly. I don't know if that's a
Exactly.
Jack Cruz. Might be the
Me too.
Jack Cruz.
And now it's a twofold meaning because typically it was referring to dimension six, which is the environment that somebody will go home to. So you go to treatment, you do all the things and then you go home. And if you go home and drugs and alcohol are still being used in the home, you're not going to be able to get well there, right? So we would use that same saying. And then when I came to this space, it was the same saying. So now I have to explain
Oh,
it means two different things when we're talking about recovery. My favorite that Laura pulled here was be the reason someone questions
Oh, yes.
in their body. I love that.
I love that.
It was really good.
it's so scary, right? Putting all
I
this stuff out there. And
did.
it's just, yeah. I feel like I'm in my season of fierceness this year. Like I'm just like, I just
Mm.
don't care. I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna shout it from the rooftops, like, and like my husband says, just post and ghost. Don't read the comments.
Post and ghost. I love it. I think a lot of us are finally ready to speak up. I'm feeling the same. Yeah, with some of my posting and yeah, season of fierceness. I like that. And I was just when that quote, be the reason someone questions what they put in their body. When I think of you, it could be the reason someone questions what they put on their body, based on what we
Mm.
talked about today too. You could almost do a new one on that. There's one, oh, there's,
Can I just share something really
oh,
quick?
please, please do.
So I'll be sharing shortly, but my daughter just had surgery yesterday and she
Oh,
broke her elbow, but she broke it on the growth bone. And it took me about a week to agree to the surgery that they wanted to do right away. But I wanted to make sure like there was no fear involved. We were going to get to the bottom of asking every single question to the point where we were talking to the anesthesiologist for 3 days leading up to the surgery. And I have to say, like, I'm going to reveal this and I'm going to share it to my community shortly, but you never know when you go under anesthesia. Like, if you don't read the paperwork in detail, what they could be doing to you when you're under anesthesia and surgery.
Mhm.
And so, all over my paperwork, I put no vaccines, no biologics. Please, you have no permission. Like, I wanted to know exactly what the anesthesiologist was going to be putting in her body. And they were so gracious and they were so great to work with. But I think it's because I knew what I was talking about and I was asking all the right questions. And so
Mhm.
I'll actually be sharing that. Like, I am going to come up with if you have to have surgery, and thank God for the Western medical system, like when you need surgery, that we have
Yes.
all this advanced technology. It's amazing. But I'm going to share my own personal process and who I spoke to, why I spoke to them, what specific questions I asked leading up to the surgery. And then I'll also do like a free PDF, like on the back end, on like what to do to recover after you've had anesthesia and after surgery. So
Mhm.
look for that on my Instagram to come soon. So
That's going to be a beautiful question, or
Yeah.
yeah, questionnaire.
I I recently went through surgery, so I appreciate you putting that out there. I was lucky enough I didn't have to have an anesthesia though, but I they didn't tell me about the possibility when I had a spinal that even though you have to have you have to go to the bathroom before you leave the hospital, or they don't let you leave, but they didn't warn me that I didn't really have full control. And I had a little accident
mm,
in the hours that followed, sitting on a duvet of a bed. Well, that's all I could be at the time. But yeah, that was a little trauma, a little micro trauma compared to the big trauma I just had that morning, but with the surgery. But the little things like that, somebody should have told me that, and
Mhm.
yeah, the things to include in the PDF. But well, I think we're getting closer to our time. The last one that just Andy and I were talking about before you came on, that was a little bit special to us. It was a post you did on judgment, and
mm.
you challenged us to look up a story about the Chinese farmer. Can you tell us a little bit about, and Andia's going to actually send me the video that she has. She has a cartoon video. So I looked it up and I loved it. Could you tell us about this Chinese farmer and why you did that post?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you could tell, we do a lot of mindset stuff with the kids during sunrise, and sunrise become has become a very special like bonding time for us.
Mm.
So, I do these two prayers every morning about connecting with our higher selves in the morning and setting intentions for the day and also some gratitude. My husband does these two prayers every morning, and we also read every morning to our children. It's like 2 to 3 pages. Right now, we're reading this book. It's called How to Have an Extraordinary Life. And it's 65 life lessons. And the author wrote these as letters to his two kids. It's a really cute book. And this is where he introduced the concept of this Chinese farmer. And I don't remember specifically, but generally it was something like the guy's son comes home and he like finds this horse, and they were like, how lucky that you found this horse. And then the son like rides the horse the next day trying to break him in, but he falls off and he breaks his leg, and the neighbors are like, how unlucky, he broke his leg. Well, then the next day the draft came and they wanted him to be drafted to the army, but because he had the broken leg, he didn't get drafted. And then everybody was like, how lucky that he didn't get drafted. And so it goes something like that.
Right.
But but again, like, you could judge any one given situation, whether it's good or bad, but you really are not going to know
Yeah.
until you have hindsight. And
Hindsight.
so as our stories weave through this ether, right? Like, just question that judgment and just more observe it and be like, yeah, okay, that happened, right? And then as you go through life, you'll kind of see like whether it was what good or bad, I guess, if you want to place a judgment on it. But really, it's just what I chalk it up to is it's experience.
Like your melanoma journey, for example.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you wrote actually, you never know the consequences of misfortune or good fortune. I thought that was very clever.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, thank you.
it's funny that you had that there because for years, I've shown that in my spirituality lecture to teach people to not live in circumstance because you cannot label anything good or bad because the universe is too complex. And it's Alan Watts is the philosopher who shares this story. And I will put a link to the video in the show notes so people can hear the story. And you did a great job. Yeah, you hit all the pieces. Love it. I love the Chinese farmer. So good. Such a good listen. Okay.
Okay, well, let's talk about your just quantum lens wellness. Just I want to clarify for the listeners, especially people that maybe live near you as well to take advantage. But my understanding is you just from looking at your website that you offer coaching and then you have some in-person services, two of which I've never heard, but the four listed were Flowpresso session, a cold plunge session, red light therapy session, and an Ampcoil session. So I'd love you to just tell us a little bit about the coaching options that you have, and then these two, Flowpresso and Ampcoil, and tell us what those are.
Oh man, I love Flowpresso. Actually bring it to the retreat so the people that will be on site will be able to experience it. But it is a full body hug, is how I describe it.
Oh,
It's a lymphatic drainage suit and it just got FDA cleared, but the woman Desiree who developed it is so lovely. She's from New Zealand. And a lot of studies that they did was actually around regulating the nervous system. And so, you've heard the studies where like each person needs 8 hugs a day, right? So when a person gets out of a flow presso session, which is like a full body compression suit, it's like everything they feel like they've just been hugged for like the last half an hour or 40 minutes. So it's a lot of people have spiritual experiences in it. It's got an energy technology. It's also infrared heat as well as this compression technology all in one. It's just like it's a beautiful tool that I use to help clients get into, out of fight or flight mode and into that parasympathetic mode. She's actually one of her biggest clients is police departments. So a lot of like police departments are using it to kind of help regulate the nervous systems of cops out there.
maybe even like PTSD it could help,
Exactly.
right?
Mhm.
Oh, interesting.
Yep.
And the Ampcoil session, what is that?
Yeah, so it's PEMF.
Oh,
So
oh,
a
okay.
beautiful company. It's this copper coil. It kind of looks like a big donut, and you just kind of set it on your body. And they've written hundreds of codes, and it's sound frequency. And so when you first put it on, you actually hear the sound, and then obviously they mute the sound, but you put a little magnet over it and it spins in a circle so you know it's working. And so it's just getting that pulsified energy into your system. The way I kind of describe it is, our cells, they all move at a certain speed and rotate in a certain direction. So sometimes our cells need to like get into resonance and get back to the speed and rotation and the way that they need to. And sometimes we kind of get off balance. So it's kind of like a little reset.
And your coaching, do you have 3 month and 6 month or can you catch it,
Yep.
bring us up to date on that?
Yeah, so I have a program where I will work with people one on one, and then that's the 6 month program. And I've also created the first ever quantum health startup kit. So it includes all the tools that you would need to kind of amplify or fast track your health journey. So obviously, we've all done a lot of research. We know a lot of these like little biohacks that are out there, but this is perfectly kind of curated with my program. So as you go through the program, you have all the tools that and then the 3 month program, it does not include the startup kit. It's just my kind of group coaching and my class that I've developed.
So with
So,
the
oh, so the 3 month is group coaching. Group coaching, nice. Okay. I just started my group coaching yesterday officially. So yeah, I'm super excited.
Nice.
Thank you. I'm glad you're doing it too. I think it's a lovely way to bring like week by week, or I don't know if you're doing it bi-weekly, but to introduce slowly the concepts, and have everybody trying the things. And I think more of us need to do that.
Well, I think what I found and when I was taking women through my program was that it's very hard to give them a lot to do at first. right? So,
Mm.
like, if you tell them the first step is, I just need you to wear blue blockers after sunset, right? Like,
Mhm.
they can focus on that for a week and then, hey, go see center. I'm not saying that this is the order that I do it in, but I'm just saying, like, okay,
Mhm.
week two, then we're going to layer on, like, let's go see sunrise. Then we're going to layer on UVA, right? Like, and you do it week by week in really, really tiny, manageable steps. And what I found is most success in that. Whereas if you give someone a chest of 10 different things,
Mhm.
they're going to get so overwhelmed, nothing's going to happen. So
Mhm.
it's the way you build on progress is you build that confidence cycle, right? The competence
Right.
confidence cycle. So you teach someone how to do it, they do it, then they feel confident in it, then they'll come back and want to learn more because they want to be confident in it, and then they do it again, they build more confidence, and it's just creates better alignment for success, I would say.
Perfect.
Yeah, that they definitely get overwhelmed and then they do nothing. That is
Yes.
experience as well. Yeah, I really love how you have that set up. It's really beautiful. Okay, so we are at the
Mhm.
near end here, and we always like to ask our signature question, which is what does quantum healthy mean to you in a nutshell?
Yeah, and I bet you asked 100 different people and you're always going to get a different answer, right? So
Every time.
And we love it. There's always so
I
different.
love it. Yeah, and I think for me, I really love to pair the energetic work with spirituality and our consciousness and mindfulness along with the physical body. Like, it is my true belief that our subconscious and our conscience work together to create our physical reality. And so for me, quantum health is really around balancing and making all those in alignment. And I always teach my children that integrity is when you're living in the outer world, how you feel on the inside, right? And so it's creating an environment with your spiritual and emotional health that also is like in alignment with your physical health.
I love
Beautiful.
that. That's so beautiful.
Thank you.
I guess we have to ask you where can people find you before you leave? Like on
Yes.
Instagram?
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. So my website is Quantum Lens Wellness and Quantum Lens Wellness on Instagram as well.
Too easy. Are you on Facebook or Twitter or X?
No, I can't spread my time that thin.
I know it's tough, right? You have two girls, is that right?
Two girls, yes.
How old are they?
They are 9 and 11.
Oh, cute. Oh, such a nice age. Well, listen, we would love to thank you, Oksana, for spending the time, precious time. I know you're a mom and how busy you can be for several things. First off, have to thank your mother when you get a chance for all that she's been through, because obviously when it came to your cancer journey, you learned from that and advocated for yourself. And just thank you for sharing that journey with us today. Hopefully it will benefit somebody else who's in a similar situation. And may those for the two of you, that may that be the last suffering, that you both have to do with this. I'll call it the C word. Thank you for creating the quantum lens, well, quantum lens wellness, but also the five pillars in particular, and your own method. You've obviously found a way to make this work, and you're going to help so many more people. It sounds like a really holistic approach to wellness, guiding the, like you talk so much about the energy in the mind and the body toward optimal health. So thank you for that. And I guess lastly, I think and India too. I think we both think you're a pioneer in these retreats. What a great idea. I can remember Rudy telling, we were just going back and forth on email a couple years ago, and him saying, I've got this idea. I want to start, doing retreats. And it sounds like I think he's getting invited to, to retreats. So we'll have to ask him. He's coming on the podcast. We're gonna have to ask him if he's doing his own or is, I just think we all have dreamt about this. Like you said, coming together and meeting these people for real. And you learn so much more from meeting, like in your case, all these mentors of ours. And
Mm.
now you're becoming a mentor for other people. It's so exciting. So, and thank you for just making that so experiential. It sounds like you're bringing so much more to this retreat. So
Yeah, it's
That's
gonna,
about it. And Dia, do you have anything?
yes, this episode is going to touch a lot of people. And I think your story is going to hit home with so many people. And I just want to thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing your mom's story, your story. You hit on your children and your husband, like your family. So thank you so much. I think that people are gonna really love this episode. I know I thoroughly
Well,
enjoyed it. So okay. Thank you,
thank
everyone.
you guys so much.
Yes,
You're
thank you
welcome.
for coming on. And everyone, we will see you next time. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much for listening to the Quantum Healthy podcast. We hope you found some value in this information. And if you feel inspired, please share it and leave us a 5-star review. This will help us reach so many more people. If you want to connect with Laura, you can find her at laurakistmanwellness.com and Ndia at ndiaray.com. Links are below in the show notes. Now, go find some sunlight and embrace your own quantum healthy.